is an issue in terms of relationship building.
Thanks very much. And Gary Vidal, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to follow up on where the conversation's been going here a little bit in the concept of relationships and communication. And sorry, obviously this is my last opportunity. I want to end it on a relatively positive note. And Staff Sergeant Howe, I know you have some stories of, in your own experience of some really positive things that you've been involved in personally, but also that some of your members that you've been a leader of have been involved in. And back in your time as the commanding officer of the City of Lake, when I was the mayor, I know you initiated a kind of communication strategy to tell some of the good stories that the RCMP were doing in our community, so that it wasn't always about the negative things. It always wasn't about the enforcement things. And I want to give you an opportunity just to share 2 or 3 of these positive stories and how the impact of those positive stories could benefit those policing in First Nations communities, both maybe in neighboring ones to non-Indigenous communities, but also some of the more remote and northern First Nations communities.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I guess I read through Chief Blake's comments last week from the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and he made a comment about enforcement only being a very small part of our job. And I very much agree with that. There's a lot of restorative justice going on behind the scenes, and it's as simple as Mr. Vidal was saying. A few years ago, we had a Mountie from Quebec who was posted to a Northern First Nation in Saskatchewan. He had never been on a First Nation before, and he went to a powwow. And as soon as he heard the drum, he started dancing in his own way. And you may have seen it. It was national news. We had the dancing Mountie, but the fact that he let himself go and stepped outside of his professional persona, it won the community over. And it was just a simple 3 or 4 minute escape for him, I suppose. So it's things like that, the things that you don't see that are outside the enforcement. In my time in Loon Lake, we were dealing with an extremely violent gang that was terrorizing the whole side of the province, using the color red as a method to intimidate and scare the community. And I was so frustrated because kids couldn't even walk to school. They were terrified that these gangs were always out and always having firearms. So one of my young members made a comment about the color red, and he said, we wore red first, and, hearkening back to our red tunics. And we thought, let's take that back. So we met with the community leaders, and we're informed that red is a very important traditional color in First Nations as well. So we said, let's take this back. Again, this is totally outside of enforcement and thinking outside the box and relationship building. And what was thought of is, let's get the community mobilized all in red and walk around and tell the gangs no more. This is our community. And we mobilized over 350 people to walk around the community that day. So very, very impressed with the community that were willing to stand with us, and we were willing to stand with them. That had far more impact than any enforcement that could have been done. So just to reiterate the common theme that I'm hearing, it's all about relationships and the hundreds of thousands of positive contacts between the police and all communities, especially First Nations, every day that don't get noticed. So I appreciate Mr. Vidal's question and letting me get that message out there that while there's legislative barriers, it's very important to acknowledge that there's excellent work being done.
I'm going to honestly suggest I thought Staff Sergeant Howe would kill my time telling stories, but he didn't. So, Inspector Preston, can I throw that at you? And do you have a similar story to share, kind of from a positive perspective like that?
Thank you for that, the opportunity, because like Staff Sergeant Howe said, we have hundreds of thousands of interactions with the general public each day or year, and the only thing that seems to get publicized is the 1 or 2 that go negatively. There are a multitude of good stories being told throughout the province here. I can speak, I know Ms. Blaney will know, Corporal Chris Voller here, very close to my detachment, worked north end of the island here, has worked super hard with the community in Port Hardy, was basically indoctrinated into the community, was given a First Nations name, loved by all because he really, truly, like I say, became part of that community. Unfortunately, when he left, it left a hole there for him, but has now gone to Quadra Island here and is working with Weewokai First Nations and started off on a great footing, trying to do some reconciliation work with the community. I could go on and on. I have an officer here when it does snow. We don't get a lot of snow on Vancouver Island, which is great. But when it does snow, he'll take out his personal snow blower and go and snow blow the elders' driveways. Things like that. I know we've had just recently, and speaking of reconciliation, brought all the detachment commanders from the island here, so to put on a One Village workshop, which, if you're not aware of, it's a workshop that's put on by an educator here from the university that outlines the impact the residential schools has had on First Nation communities, with the hope that those commanders can then turn around and take that knowledge and go to their detachments and